Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Red Room. I'm your host, Shay Samuels, and you are in for a treat. Another episode with some powerful, powerful, powerful information. I want to say thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in. And I know that you're going to be blessed. I have another amazing guest, one who is going to educate, one's going to give you information, one is really going to bless you. Talk a little bit about where he's come from and a little more about where he is and how he is helping the youth. I'm going to say around the world, because I believe one touches one. I don't believe when you touch one youth that you can't touch others, because I think when you sow the seed that it ends up helping a multitude. So we're going to talk about that today. I have none other than Mr. Kendrick Tate with me, and you guys are going to learn so much. So sit still, don't turn the dial. You are going to get loaded with information today. So Mr. Kendrick Tate, how are you, sir?
I am doing well, Miss Shay. How are you doing?
I'm good. I love everybody asking me that. The song entitled I'm Good is one of my favorite songs because it's me, but I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that there's a lot of information. We have such short period of time, but I believe we can get it done. So first, tell the viewers who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Kendrick Tate. I am from Knoxville, Tennessee, born and raised. I am the baby of 7 kids. So I'm spoiled. Wow. I always been spoiled. Grew up in the inner city. And like I said, grew up in a big family, had 2 loving parents. Unfortunately, they both have gone right now, but they have instilled in me the resources and the willpower and the mindset to go on and continue not only living my story, but their story as well. So I'm a probation officer with Knox County Juvenile Court. Been doing this for 20 years. Been working with at-risk at probably about the same amount of time. Also with been doing this work called Game Changers. It's a mentoring program that we're educating middle school boys on how to prevent violence against women and girls. So I've been doing that for about 4 years.
Wow.
So that's where I'm at right now. I'm heavy in the youth.
I love it. So listen here, there are some really good men out there doing some really good things. Not everybody on the street banging, not everybody on the street trying to sell, not everybody on the street ganging. There's some really good men who came from the inner city and they're giving back. You guys probably heard me on previous episodes where I said your pain can become your purpose. The things that you've been through can really allow you to open the door for other people. You just have to have that kind of like that mind transformation. So today, what we're going to be talking about, you heard him say he is a juvenile probation officer. And right now, as it stands, the world is just in so much turmoil as it pertains to gun violence. It pertains, listen, media is giving our children something not to think about, making it easy for them. You know, you got music videos that's showing kids with all this money, and they're showing kids that this is what life should look like. And anything outside of that, you are a failure. And I believe that's how those kids end up in your hand, Mr. Tate. They end up from watching the things that they watch, seeing the things that they see. They probably have aunts and uncles who are doing this and they look up to them, but somehow they end up in your hands and they end up in your care. And for most children, I have to say, they may not get a Mr. Tate. They may get someone who does not care about them, who knows now that they're in the system, they're going to keep them in the system. But I believe you work towards getting them to shift their mind so that they can come out of the system, but not only come out of the system, be better than they were before they got there. So I believe it's important for us to be able to, we talked before about community, but it takes a village to raise a child. So how do you become a part of that village, or how does someone even intertwine with themselves, becoming a part of that village?
I think first and foremost, you got to take a look at yourself. You got to do some self-evaluation and making sure that you putting your best foot forward. Because you can't be a shining light to individuals if you out here doing wrong, in my opinion. And so you got to check yourself as a man, and know it's one of those things, it's a want to. And I think growing up, I never thought that kids would, idolize me, not in the sense of like they idolize LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, but their respect factor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you know what? I know Mr. Tate, he gonna hold me accountable. And I think growing up, that's what I had. I had other men hold me accountable. So I think in our communities,
yeah,
our downfall is we have not had enough, especially men that look like us. And
yeah,
you and me, we have not had those men in the community step
yeah.
up like they should have. Because I guarantee you, if we had done that, we would have so many. I may be out of a job. I'm just gonna put it
Wow.
to you like that. Maybe
Listen,
out
y'all
of a
heard it
job.
here. Like he said, he might be put him out
Might
of a
be out of a
job.
job.
You know what I'm
Might
saying?
be out
I
of a
dare
job.
you to put him out the job. But there's a guy here, radio personality, and he talks a lot about men having to man up. And he made a point a couple of years ago where he said, it's unfortunate how men are afraid to even go to young boys and say, pull your pants up, because they're afraid of being shot. They're afraid of being disrespected. So they just let the kid do what they're going to do. And they don't, get out the car and pump the gas for your mom. There's nobody that sees that anymore and decides like, I need to intervene. Why do you think most men are afraid to intervene, especially with this generation?
And I think it goes back to getting out of your comfort zone. You know what I mean? A lot of men and just people in general, but I'm speaking directly to men, or that kid doesn't have any bearing on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it can't be like that, because we go back talking about that village. You need that village. So if you get that village going, then you don't think like that. Because I've had kids that I don't know. And I have kids that come in that before me, and I give it what I call the speech.
Yes.
Now I can't tell you what I say because I don't want to get beeped out on here. So but it's the speech that hits home, and it's real.
Yes.
I tell them, don't let the shirt and tie fool you. And it's when I give that speech, I'm aiming for their hearts.
Yes, that's so good. I love
Aiming
that.
for their hearts. I want to touch their hearts. I want to touch their soul, to let them know, yes, you don't know me and I don't know you, but I still love you. Yeah. And I'm gonna come from a place of where you can understand, where you can feel me, where you can't doubt it and be like, you know what? He fake. You will never say that, because you're gonna feel my words. And because what I do, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm an emotional individual, and my passion, I just reek a passion. Yeah. And when kids see that, they like, you know what? Wow, that's real. That's real.
One thing that you said, it kind of just really struck a nerve with me. You said a lot, but here's the thing. Kids still have a soul. They still have a heart. And no matter what the exterior looks like, no matter how they dress it up, they still have a soul. Mm-hmm. And if you take the time out to just talk with them, share passionately, not aggressively, not to chastise, not to tell them what they shouldn't do. Look, the Bible told us enough in the Old Testament what we shouldn't do. Right. The New Testament freed us. So these kids don't even know they need to be freed, right? They're being brought up in a community where the closest relatives are going back and forth to jail. So to them, that's what life is supposed to look like. They made it when they got behind the bars. Yep. Right? Am I right? Am I right, Mr. Tate?
No, you're right.
They made it when they got behind the bars. There was a young man who said at a reunion I went to, he said he was glorifying the fact that he was behind bars. He said, I was sending my son pictures and I was showing what good time I was having. He said, and one day somebody said to him, what picture are you giving him to say that I'm back here, but I'm living life? He said, I stopped sending my son those type of pictures because he was glorifying it, not intentionally. He was just showing them, look, I'm good. But if I'm showing my son that that's good, then what does he have to look forward to as he gets older? So I want to say that to someone who's listening today, somebody who's watching today, that you could be glorifying unintentionally the wrong thing. Know that your children are looking at you. Know that you are a model or an example of what they want to grow up to be one day. And no, you may not get it right. You really may not get it right, but you have an opportunity to give them a chance to just live. They have a heart and they have a soul. And what Mr. Tate said is the right word will prick them if you allow yourself to become uncomfortable. Yep. What do you have to say about that, Mr. Tate?
You said it all. I don't even know what to say. You clean the house on that one, but yeah, just to reiterate that, and I make it a point to tell my clients that I love them. I do.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
that's those three words are probably the three words that you never hear in a household that you
yes.
should. And even in my own life, I don't think I say it enough because we not on this precious earth for long, and you don't
No.
know when your time is gonna be. So
Yes.
the one thing I want my clients to know, like, I'm a stranger. I don't know you. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna pretend that I know you, but
Yes.
I see you and I love you, and I
Come
want you
on.
to know that I care about you, and you're not just
Yes.
another case to me. So that I
Yeah.
want my clients to always feel that when I work with them.
Now, the information that you're getting today, it really is to help free a family. I mean, that's basically what my goal is during this topic is to free a family. We go through enough of our own struggles, and we understand that, there's a lot of baggage that comes from one generation to the next, one generation to the next. But the one thing that's consistent is that we end up picking up the baggage somehow along the lines and adding our own mess. Can you imagine? Okay, let's just say this, like rock with me for just a second. Can you imagine a parent who has their own bag and they put one or two items in there? And then the kid grabs the bag and that one or two items of the parents is in there, but then they put three or four items in there. They grow up and then they end up having children. And the four items that they put in now, the children that they have six items that they're putting in there. And the baggage just grows. Eventually, it's going to be too hard for somebody to carry. And I
Exactly.
believe that's who ends up in your system.
Nope, I totally agree. And people don't understand the cycle. Um, and once you work in juvenile justice, you can clearly see the cycle. I can go point out families, and I could trace it all the way back, generation after generation after generation. I'm like, you know why it continues? Because you've had no one in the family
Come
to
on.
break that cycle because
Come
nobody
on.
knows how. And I've run across that so much in the court system and in all my 20 years of experience. And it's
Wow.
sad. It is really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice do you have for the parents out there who may be going through this system cycle that we see our children going through on a daily basis? What's your advice? How do we keep them? Well, here's the thing. The advantage is that they find you while in the system. And sometimes you got to go through to get through.
Right.
So I can say I'm honored to know that you're on the other side of them going through. Once they're in the system, what advice do you have for the parents that will help their youth, male or female, to become more of have more of an advantage after they've gotten into the system?
I think first and foremost, you gotta be supportive. And the kid didn't get here by itself. And
Yes.
I tell the parents all the time, it's not directly your fault because you can do everything in your power. And I tell my clients all the time, it's only by the grace of God that I wasn't on the
Yeah.
other side of that desk. Because Lord
Yeah.
knows I did some stuff in my teenage years that was just dumb that just should have put me in the juvenile justice system. But it's
Yeah.
only by the grace of God that I didn't get caught. And so, but back to what I was saying, you got to, I mean, because it breaks you down as a parent,
Yes.
because you feel like a failure. So my biggest thing is you got to support that kid. Once
Yeah.
they get in the system, you got to love that kid because this is where, this is in the juvenile justice system, they're going to be nice to you because
Yeah.
on the other side, it's a whole different animal. And we tell them this all the time, like you become a number, and, you
Yeah.
become a statistic, and they're not going to offer all these
Wow.
programs. They're going to tell you they're going to offer all these programs, but
And
they
then they
really don't
don't.
care. They're just doing that for face value because
Yeah.
once you get in the system, it's hard to get out the system, especially for our
Wow.
Black and brown kids. And we already know how that system works for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It don't look the same. We just gonna be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
call an ace and a spade a spade.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that as you said it, because it's so much harder to get out if we understood the injustice in the justice system and how it's developed, how it's structured. And I think we miss that, just educating ourselves daily. And I thank God for people like you and people that you know who are really setting a tone to be who you are in the community. It's effective. And it may seem a little like, I'm only touching a small group of people. There's a whole world of people out there who need a Mr. Tate. So shout out to all the people who are the Mr. Tates in different states.
Yes,
and different areas of the globe, because it is making a difference. Now, tell us about kind of the stressors. Of course, being a juvenile probation officer, like you said, we're talking about the kids and we're talking about pulling on their heartstrings, but it has to be mentally challenging for you as well, especially being a man who was in the inner city. You see it, you know it, you've overcome it. And I know you got to think like, why can't they just get it? Why can't they get it? But talk to us about the mental state that you're in after having to go through so much of this.
Now, when I first started, I was gung-ho, and I was in a more intensive program that allowed, we were kind of like out of the office. We were like kind of like parole probation, juvenile probation officer. So I was doing late night curfew checks. I was knocking on doors at 12:30 and 1 o'clock. But once I got kind of like the regular probation job, as I got went to start working at Knox County Juvenile Court, it kind of settled down. But for me personally, it takes a toll on an individual, especially if you one that cares about you. And if it's just a job to you, then you don't really care. But I found a lot of times I was taking my work home. And I know now, with having a fiance and just having somebody that I can like talk about my cases, which I try not to do, and just working out, but just staying busy, doing kind of like your own thing to get your mind off of that stuff. Because you can find yourself in I'll tell you this, burnout is the worst thing.
Yes.
Burnout is the worst thing I've had to deal with. And, being able to do something different, like Game Changers, like I was mentioning before, actually saved my career because it rejuvenated my passion to work with young people, because I wasn't doing it in a probation rule. I was actually being able to be a mentor and then talk to them in a different light.
I love it. I love it. So for the probation officers out there who are going hard, look, you the new probation officers out there who like, I'm about to change the world. I'm about to change it.
That was me.
One house at a time. Listen, there's a such thing as burnout. And once you start dealing with the youth's mental incapabilities, I believe too, like when we touch people or when we connect with people, their spirits, they can really like, it can tear ours down as well. I'm trying to be nice about saying it, but it's a lot.
I've had some demons in my office. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Come on.
I didn't see the horns in the tail, but you can't tell me they weren't demons. I'm just gonna leave it at that, Shay. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Listen, look, we just gonna keep it real. If you're just tuning in, you are listening to Mr. Kendrick Tate, juvenile probation officer out of Knox County. And we're just keeping it real here because honestly, our goal is for you to get exactly what you need on this broadcast. If you don't keep it real, you can't free somebody. You can't really get the person to the next step. The reason I thought about the probation officers is because, like you said, there are people out there who actually don't care. They're there. It's a job. They get their pay. They go home. Some people, they go through their own cycles of life. They're there for their own reasons. Maybe they didn't get what they needed to get. But there are people, the Bible reminds us that many are called, but few are chosen. And that just means that there's a lot of people called to do what you do, but there are select few who are chosen to do it how you do it. So again, I want to say thank you for that, because the children actually need more people like you. So let's talk about the parents, because, I like to get into the parents. I do. We talked about the youth and they probably like, why are they always talking about us? Because y'all need to get it together. But what about the parents? There are so many parents out there who are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Not every parent you touch, I'm sure, is a parent who is like out in the streets. They the ones gang, and they the ones. These are hardworking parents. And because they have to go to work day in and day out, they leave the kids home because they got to do what they got to do to pay the bills. And the kids get connected with the wrong kids who then get connected with the wrong kids. And before you know it, they just don't know how their kid got there. How are you comforting? Can you comfort one of those parents today on this broadcast? That parent that's saying, I don't know how it started. I wanted to do the right thing. Little Bobby didn't grow up in a family like this.
Mhm. Right? I heard that a million times.
How do you help to comfort those parents?
Like I said, just being honest and teaching them that criminality knows no gender, knows no race.
Yes.
It don't care about social class, and it's always present. It's just like the devil, always present and waiting for you to make that wrong move. The thing is, Shay, that once you make that wrong move, knowing that that's a learning opportunity. And whatever on this petition or in this court documentation, it does not define you. It's just a snippet of your life at that point in time. But you have the opportunity to make that go away. Just like God, forgives us for our sins. You have the ability to make that charge be expunged if you handle your business and follow the court orders and do what you're supposed to do and correct that wrong and make it a right.
I love, there's two things that you said that I really picked up on, and I want to address it for the person viewing this today. The first thing is, as a parent, you got to realize that sometimes, just like your children have to go through to find a Mr. Tate. You probably been praying. You probably were trying to figure out how you get it out. How do I get this person out? How I get my son, how I get my daughter out of this? Well, sometimes they have to go through to find a Mr. Tate. And when they get to Mr. Tate, it's not going to be you that changes, but it's going to be him that transforms the way that they think. So if you look at it from that perspective, don't always say everything is going wrong. What's going right with the situation? So I need you to look at it from that perspective. Yes, the other part is whatever is on that documentation, whatever you see, I believe that my God can turn it around. I've never been in this situation, but I know a number of people who went in thinking they were about to do only 1 year to 5 years, and they came out with just probation, or they came out unscathed. My question to you is, what do you do after that? So even if your child is not in the system, I encourage you to look people up like Mr. Tate. Get them before they get into the system. Know the signs. Look it up. YouTube, Google. How do you know for a fact that my kid is about to go in the wrong direction? Know the signs. There's too much out there in this technology, this world of technology, for us not to know. Listen, if you want to know more information about how to keep your kids out of the system, or maybe the kid is in the system, I want you guys to look up Mr. Kendrick Tate. I want you guys to look up people like Mr. Kendrick Tate. Call the probation officers and find out in advance what you can do. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this, honestly. It's true. They may make it seem like you can't. Well, we can't do anything. Your child's not in the system. If you are as persistent as you is about that stimulus check, if you are persistent as you are when it comes down to getting them Jordans for them, those Apple phones, nobody gets Androids, those iPads, those hats, those clothes. If you are just that persistent, be even more persistent to get them into an environment that can save and change their lives forever. Mr. Tate, we have 2 minutes left. Can you please just give a word of encouragement to someone today who is saying, listen, I need this information today? What word of encouragement do you have?
I don't know who needs to hear this, but trust God. Trust God. You're not going to understand everything that's going on with your kid. You're not going to be able to stop your kid from doing certain things. But if you give your kid to God, I guarantee you that return will not be, it won't come back null or void. I guarantee you that. So that would be my advice. And if you're not a believer, I'm going to need you to start believing. Because
come on.
At the end of the day, that's the only sole creator that can save your child at the end of the day. So other than that, love them. I love it. Love them no matter what. Good, bad, ugly, tired, happy, sad. Just love them. Because if you don't, I know who will.
Yeah. And you know what? It's not your fault. I'm just going to go ahead and say that it's not your fault. So listen, I want to thank you, Mr. Kendrick Tate, for joining us today. This was amazing. I've learned so much, and I know the viewers have as well. This is another fantastic episode of The Red Room with your host, Shay Samuels, and we will see you at the next